Welcome. Folks, the nightmare continues. Mets getting swept by the Milwaukee Brewers. And, this has been a house of horrors. A house of horrors. The Mets now losers of 11 out of their last 12 games. And, folks, this was a team that was supposed to be aspiring for a World Series. Today, ridiculous. Again, every single game, it feels like a broken record. It feels like a damn broken record, right? And you try to look at the positives. Today, the Mets jump out to a 5-run lead, right? Positive. Sean Manaea, hopefully he can give you length. First couple times through the order, all right, decent. Then, same thing happens. Same thing as last outing. He just hits a brick wall. He begins to falter. Sean Manaea, he's going with two pitches. You could see there's not something kind of right. And, that's another story. But he just hit a brick wall, hands it off to the bullpen, right? After giving up a couple of runs. Fine, the Mets still have a lead. The bullpen is a strong suit, although they are being overworked. And the Mets end up succumbing and getting walked off. Helsley, Diaz can't hold the league. And folks, we're going to go over more of what happened in detail, but it's alarming. It is just alarming, but it also feels like it's a broken record. Starting rotation, huge concern. And I think this is much bigger problem than we thought of at the trade deadline. Now, I was ringing the bell for months saying you're relying on Senga, who didn't pitch last year, Manaea, who's been hurt. And is this the real Sean Manaea? Because last year he had a good 2-3 months, right? But if you look at his career, he's an over 4 ERA pitcher. Is this more of what Sean Manaea really is, right? Everybody's saying, you hear the post-game comments from Mendoza, oh, we're waiting for Sean Manaea to get back to where we know he can be. But is this Sean Manaea? This is more in line with his regular career stats. So, that's something kind of to worry about. And then the rest of the rotation, we went all over with it ad nauseum. But today's game, anything the Mets could do to blow it, they're going to do it. Every single day I have the same title, Mets Meltdown. In the beginning of the year, the Mets would get out to a lead, score very little runs, but somehow be able to hold the lead. And miraculously, they had a winning formula. Miraculously. But now, juxtapose that, they have a losing formula. Every single day, same thing, losing formula. Eighth inning, Helsley, Mendoza said, I felt good going into the 8th inning. The Mets had a 1-run measly lead, winning 6-5. You bring Helsley in the bottom of the 8th inning. He gives up 1 run, tie game, and then you go to Diaz, hoping that he can just close the door. But, we all know when the Brewers came back from 5 runs and when they tied the game in the 8th, I think every single Mets fan out there knew that this was over. Every single Mets fan out there knew that this was over. This Mets team has no confidence. Right now, they lack motivation. Right now, they lack leadership. They lack all the winning intangibles that you need. Now, what I'm looking to leadership. I'm looking to Lindor, who is supposed to be a leader, not showing up. Then I'm looking to Mendoza, who's the leader on the bench. He's the manager. Is he looking like a leader? Well, folks, the comments that he continues to make in the postgame show are extremely alarming. Now, I wrote down almost every single comment that he made in the postgame show, and one of the words that I highlighted was he continues to say that the Mets are being outplayed, right? You're identifying the Mets are outplayed. Now, that's blatantly obvious to Mets fans and, fans alike that the Mets are being outplayed. But whose fault is that? Whose job and responsibility is it to make sure our guys are going out there motivated? I mean, that job falls on Mr. Carlos Mendoza. And you know what? We honestly, he keeps saying we have the talent. And I do believe we have the talent. We should be winning a lot of these games, but we're just not closing the door. And again, this team, bad teams find ways to lose. Good teams find ways to win. I'm going to continue to repeat that. We are 18-26 since June 19th. And right now, we are currently a game and a half ahead of the Cincinnati Reds for the last wild card spot. Ridiculously sad. And, forget about the NL East. I mean, the Phillies, they're like around 5 games ahead of us right now, and it just doesn't really seem like that's going to be a viable avenue into the playoffs. So, folks, it's late. I tried doing a live stream right after the game, but I just, it was just so upsetting. So, thank you for all right now. Crispy, Richard, CAG, Mr. Met. Thank you so much for participating right now. Daniel, we're going to get to some comments momentarily. But this is just terribly pathetic. And again, we are spiraling. We are certainly spiraling, and, hallmarks that you could rely on, even guys like Edwin Diaz. But really, how can I blame Edwin Diaz? He's been good all year. The guy's pitched 3 times in 2 weeks. I mean, for you to be an effective pitcher, you got to get in there. He left the ball right over the plate, and that allowed the Brewers, team to jump on it. It's just really kind of hard to fathom. It's really hard to fathom. But the Mets team looks like they're expecting to lose, right? And it just feels with the day off tomorrow, I don't know. It feels like I'm expecting really something big to happen. Carlos Mendoza in the post-game conference, he does not sound like a man who's confident. He's really not. His demeanor, his tone, and if he's projecting that in the clubhouse, a losing tone, a losing, mindset, I mean, that is just going to make this thing trickle further and further, expand this losing streak, expand more and more. Right now it's 7 games, 11 out of our last 12. Again, it's just really hard because this was a team that you expected to at least make the playoffs, but more when you spend $800 million on Juan Soto and when you make the moves at the deadline, you expected this team to make a World Series run. And we are just so far away from that. And it's really kind of, it's comical. It's comical to think right now. Crispy, I saw you had your comment. You had it early on. You can blame the players, coach, schedule, weather, blame anyone you want, but the buck stops with mini market smiling David Stearns. I was right all along. Well, you know what? We can take laps at, this is really not the time to pump out a chest and say we're right about how, what's wrong. I know you've been saying that a very long time, but I'm not ready to give up on this season right this minute. The Mets, yes, they're in a very, very bad situation. You could blame Stearns. You could blame Mendoza. You could blame Soto. You could blame Lindor. You could blame Alonso. But at this point right now, what are we going to do to fix it? And fortunately, it's getting late very quickly. Obviously, that's to go without saying, but there's still time to fix it. And what is going to fix this situation? Now, I think we're going to have to make drastic changes. Now, one of the moves that you saw the Mets, positioning is they promoted a bunch of young top prospects from AA to AAA. As soon as that hit my phone saying prospects being promoted, I'm thinking, oh, wow, you just promoted all these guys to the majors. But when I read the whole report, it looks like the Mets are promoting top prospects, Jonah Tong, Jet Williams, Carson Benj, and Ryan Clifford, all to AAA. And the next step is for those guys to hit the majors. So, I don't know if this is just a message. I mean, in fact, I believe that this is a message being sent to the current major league roster saying, hey, there are a bunch of young, hungry, talented kids ready to come up and take your job. Now, they're not here yet, but they are so damn close to the MLB team, and these kids are hungry. So I believe that this is a message, and that this is part of the process, of getting these kids here sooner rather than later. Now, the New York Mets have some talent at the AAA level right now that they can go to. They can go to Nolan McLean, who has been dominating, or they can go to Brandon Sproat, who's also been doing pretty well. Those two are already at AAA. So I mean, maybe this is just the first step. You get a bunch of kids from AA to AAA, and now you're going to start promoting kids from AAA to the major league team. But you're going to have to do things ASAP. And again, I think the only hesitation right now with firing Mendoza, there's only one thing. Obviously, you got David Stearns hiring the man. But, he's in his second year. So I think there's just some hesitation where, the guy had a successful season last year. Now he's in his second year. Hopefully that this guy, you wanted to develop him. Right now, the Mets are just playing so poorly and so bad that when David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza look up and see Steve Cohen overseeing this horrible mess, what is the excuse? Steve Cohen, he is a guy spending $350 million. This is an example of how to waste $350 million. And then when you put the Mets finances on top of it and you realize that the Mets are already losing money, this is probably very upsetting to a guy like Steve Cohen. Like, I'm trying to invest my money. I know I'm already losing money. And, at the end of the day, I could live with the team building, going in the right direction, building off of last year when we went 2 games shy of the World Series. But if we somehow do not make the playoffs and do not change this course, I mean, heads are going to roll. It has to be. A guy like Steve Cohen doesn't operate as a loser. And, where's David Stearns? David Stearns has to blame Carlos Mendoza. And I think in some of the press game comments, you have Carlos Mendoza trying to blame David Stearns because he keeps talking about the talent, and every time he mentions that we have the talent, it always seems like he's questioning it. It always seems like he's questioning the fact that we have enough talent on this team. I mean, when you question the amount of talent on this team, who puts the talent together? That's David Stearns. Now, the thing is, I'm not saying we have everything's perfect at every position. You see the starting rotation, leaves a lot to be desired. Obviously, these guys aren't going long in games. So even if you have a strength being in the bullpen, they're vastly overworked. So again, the solution, you can either fire the manager, right? Or you bring up a whole slew of some of these young pitchers. Where else are you going to go? Either fire the manager or you bring up some of these young pitchers at least to eat up innings, at least to see if they can get to the 5th inning. I mean, it's just so super sad that Manaya can't get to the 5th inning. Montage couldn't even go past 3 innings the other day. It's just super, super sad, super frustrating. And guys like Kodai Senga that you're like, at least we got Kodai Senga. At least he's our ace. He's been struggling of late as well. So there is no break in that rotation. That means all the stress is going to be on the bullpen. So right now, I mean, to Crispy, your defense, this team right now is in constructed extremely poorly right now. Poorly, even though you have strong parts, so to say, strong parts, they're becoming weaker because of the other parts of your team. Because of the other parts on your team. And right now, in my opinion, the weakest part of the team is the starting rotation by far. Despite the offense struggling, the offense has ability. The offense has ability. I can't say that right now. The position that the pitchers are in right now in uncharted territory, you have everybody in uncharted territory. David Peterson already reached his inning limit. He's pitching highest innings ever. He already went over 121 innings. Clay Holmes already over his innings limit. Sean Manaea is back to the Sean Manaea of a couple years ago. Number 4, number 5 in the rotation. Montaz is a number 6, a number 7. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm wishing for the days of Tyler McGill and Griffin Canning. Remember those days, Griffin Canning in the beginning of the year? I mean, Griffin Canning, that is a guy that I feel bad he got hurt. I feel bad he got hurt. But at the end of the day, we need answers rather than more questions. And at the end, and right now we have so many questions. So hopefully tomorrow we get some answers. Hopefully tomorrow we see some promotions, we see some movement, because I don't think it's all of a sudden going to change. I don't think all of a sudden going to change. Mentality on this team is not going to change unless something significant happens. Shoot, almost dropped my drink. That would have been a disaster. All right, so let's go here. And again, we're going to get to some game highlights as well. I want to break down and see exactly what happens at certain points. But Richard, you're right. Dom, this team is done. It's hard to argue right now. Again, I said we have some time left. That's the fortunate part. But, pretty soon, a couple series go by, this team could be done. CAG, you're right. This is total bullshit. I'm sick and tired of this garbage. They need household changes this offseason. They need house cleaning, especially with the lineup. The lineup has destroyed this ball. Well, you know what? The thing is, the problem was all season we were relying on 3 or 4 players, right? And, the 3 or 4 players we're relying on have been slumping mightily. Nimmo can't even make contact. Again, he had 2 walks today. And for some reason, I don't get this. I mean, I saw the second half of the game. First half of the game. I luckily, well, I mean, I don't want to say luckily, but probably luckily I didn't catch, because it would have been upsetting seeing them score, and then obviously I saw them blow it. But Nimmo was batting third in the lineup. Guy's not making contact. I know. Promote him. Bat him third. Seems like it makes sense. Again, Lindor today, another guy you're relying on. Lindor, again, was hitless. So a lot of our big guys we're relying on. And then, our development, Ronnie Mauricio, Mark Vientos, these guys should, in my opinion, be a little further along where they are. Francisco Alvarez, where that from 2 years ago, talk about regression. A lot of guys have regressed. Mark Vientos, specifically from last year. So again, the top of the lineup has been terribly inconsistent, and you match that with the regression in the second half of the lineup, and you just have a total disaster of a lineup. But today they scored 6 runs, right? So again, what is their no hit or 1 hit a couple games ago? So offense was the problem that day and many others. Then today they score 6 runs. All right, something else has to be a problem. Starting pitcher Manaea, he struggles. Reed Garrett gives up, can't really kind of save him, but, it is what it is. And then you got Helsley and you got Diaz giving up a run apiece. So, again, the bullpen, that almighty bullpen that you're relying on, even them, they couldn't really hold the game this time out. Again, finding new ways to lose. Crispy, you wrote, Sean Manaea has a career of 4.01. He's nothing special at all. He's concealed this injury, which dates back to last year, so he could secure that $75 million. Um, honestly, I don't know that. Obviously, I don't know if he's concealing any injuries, and if he did have any injury, and he just concealed it just so he can get that $75 million, that's still on the Mets, because if they're going to hand out a $75 million contract, there's physicals that they give their players, and they have to make damn well sure, take MRIs, take CAT scans, give this guy a full examination, especially when he's 33 years old, to make sure he's fully healthy and he's not concealing anything. But, that's on the Mets, and obviously that would be on Manaea if he did that. But I have no knowledge of that. Rich, I have been going off on Cohen and Stearns on X. At this point, Mets fans, they have a right to vent. Mets fans have a right to be upset. I mean, in the last couple of years, the Mets fans were sold a bill of goods that we were going to invest in players, right? In talent, like Soto, like Lindor. But while we were investing in that talent, while we were doling out money, we were supposed to be developing our minor league talent. Since 2020, when a Cohen took over this team about 5 years ago, which talent have we developed, especially from the starting pitchers? I mean, we're bereft of young talent. Now, you thought Alvarez, was he going to be a key cog? Vientos, was he going to be a key cog? But again, those guys have regressed. So then I ask, in the last 5 years, what young talent have the Mets developed? And that's been a big part of the problem. And that's why the Mets have to still spend well over $300 million. And teams like the Brewers really could be successful and not spend that type of money. CAG, you're right. They need to revamp the starting rotation, and they need at least two major upgrades in the lineup. And they need hitters, guys that can hit close to 300, guys that make contact and grind ABs. Well, I fully agree with that. The funny thing is, Soto was supposed to be that guy that, grinds ABs. He was supposed to be that guy that makes everybody in the lineup better. But somehow Soto made, I'm not going to say it's his fault, but let's just say it. He made everybody in the lineup worse. Again, that's was supposed to be why you invest all that money. Soto makes guys better, but no, everybody in the lineup has been struggling. So it's had a counter effect. I agree. You need to revamp the rotation, and you need some actual professional hitters. You would see look across the diamond. You look how the Brewers are playing. Look how they are attacking. They don't have a team full of all-stars up and down the lineup. That's why I'm so upset about the mentality of this coaching staff, of this manager. The Mets have enough talent to win. They have enough talent to win, but they're just showing how mentally weak they are. And then when you translate to that aspiration to win the World Series, then that makes it laughable. Like, if you're this mentally weak in the beginning of August and you're losing 7 games straight, 11 out of 12, how the hell do you envision this team being strong enough to make a World Series run? Then it becomes laughable. What's up, Daniel? Thank you for some positivity. Happy Sunday to you as well. CAG, I would chill with the solo talk, considering Alonso hit 24 solo. Yeah, honestly, I know we're referring to Juan Soto hitting solo shots, but there's so many holes in the lineup. Like, everybody's not doing their job. Juan Soto, yes, he's the highest paid guy. You rely on him, but there's just so much damn blame to go around. So much damn blame. And I think this comment, I think Mendoza needs to go. He reminds me of Mickey Callaway. The results are the results. The results are the results. I mean, you see, did Mickey Callaway ever lose 11 out of 12? I mean, he did a lot of losing. The Mets, but right now, I know one thing: Mickey Callaway didn't lose 11 out of 12 with a $350 million payroll team. He didn't do that. The Mets invested a heck of a lot of resources in this team, and for this team to be this unsuccessful, it's a crime. It's a crime. And we got New York Mets fans, across the country. Mets fans are great fans. I mean, you see Mets fans traveling to Milwaukee, and again, I mentioned it yesterday. The cameras panning all around the stadium and seeing Mets fans upset. But at this point right now, it just feels like I'm going into this game expecting to lose. What have the Mets shown you in the last couple of months that have inspired confidence? Nothing is inspiring confidence. I'll tell you, the one time I had confidence in the last couple of months was after the trade deadline when the Mets got a couple pieces and they got a center fielder. I'm like, okay, let's see. Maybe this shakes up the team. This strengthens up the bullpen, the starters. Okay, if they go 5 or 6, now you shut the door in the 7th. This will support the offense because now you have less runs being given up, less pressure on the offense. Mullins seems like a great team player. He's talking about championships. He's going to help out, the center field defense, an extra bat, Tyrone Taylor moving to the 4th outfield spot. Great stuff. Everybody, all the experts are saying the Mets had a great, trade deadline. That was the only time I felt good. But stupid me, stupid me. This is when the Mets go in the midst of a killer losing streak, and the Mets kind of show their true colors. And this is what really upsets me. Because this is who the Mets truly are. The trade deadline is passed. A lot of players, they don't want to uproot their families, so they'll play to the best of their ability before the trade deadline. After that, there's really nothing for these guys to play for. Usually you want to play for making the playoffs, but it doesn't seem like that is motivating this team. It doesn't seem like it's motivating this team. And a guy like Pete Alonso, who, again, I kind of feel bad for Pete because he got off to a very hot start. And he's went through a lot of streaks of struggling in the last 2 months. Yes, he's had a couple home runs here and there, but you see his average went from like over 300 2 months ago to like barely being above 260. So again, he's had a lot of trouble. Batted probably, I think he went through a 40-game stretch where he was batting 150. So he's struggling mightily. And at the end of the year, again, Pete Alonso, what is he worth? At the beginning of the year, you're like, okay, this guy's worth $100 million over 4 or 5 years. But now Pete's kind of showing you that as the season goes along, this guy is kind of showing you that he regresses throughout the year. And that may be normal for a 31-year-old guy, lumbering first baseman. But again, it's not helping out our team. Now, I think this team needs to get younger, more dynamic. You saw Ryan Clifford. He got promoted to AAA. Is he the future first baseman? A lot of early on, I was more along the lines like, what? I want Pete because you see how Pete is carrying this offense. But I think this whole offense needs to be drastically reevaluated. Really, from Nimmo to Lindor. I mean, Lindor, you're probably not going to be able to do much about because he has that big contract. So you're going to have those two stalwarts, Lindor and Soto. But everybody else, every position is up in the air. And I mean, that's kind of sad to say, but every position offensively is up in the air. We have no solid locks except for Soto and Lindor, and that's because they're locked into big long-term money, right? And then if you kind of reevaluate the Soto contract already in the first year, I'm pretty sure there's a big contingent, a large part of Mets fans. If I asked, or if we had a big poll that asked Mets fans, would you do it all over again? Would you give Soto $800 million over 15 years? And you know what? Asking me, Even though I was, I was a lot of money, and I was kind of like, okay, whatever it takes to get it done, you get him for 5 years, and you get him from 26 to 31. But right now, if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't sign him to that contract. I would not sign him to that contract. And Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of sad to say. I mean, I was super happy when Soto got signed here, but I'm not seeing the positive. One of the reasons why I want to Juan Soto was because I thought that he would have a positive effect on the lineup, on the team. It's just not happening. It's not happening. He is having that detrimental, that negative effect on the lineup, on the team. Richard, right? Oh, no. Ricardo, how's it going? Never wanted him for that contract. I think we're gonna probably hear a lot of that. Um, Hoping that contract looks a little better in the next couple years. And then you also right. I really think Clifford is the first baseman of the future. Ryan Clifford, I think he's actually improved a lot over the last year. I want to see his up to date stats. He just got promoted to AAA. So this year, Ryan Clifford has had 363 at bats. So 363 at bats. So that's not crazy. That's almost half a season in a major league, maybe a little more than half a season. And he has 24 home runs, 75 RBIs, batting 245. I mean, that's about like, a normal major league player these days. His on base is 360. His slug is 500. His OPS is 857. He has 110 strikeouts. That's still very high, but he also has 63 walks. So, I mean, as they were saying, he is like the three true outcomes. He walks, he strikes out, or he hits a home run. So he's got to work on a little bit more of the contact game. Hopefully he straightens that out at AAA. But I do think there's a lot of promise with a guy like Ryan Clifford. He's only 21 years old. And at the end of the day, he may be the sole chip. We made all those trades at the 2023 deadline. Ryan Clifford may be the only sole chip that is positive. We traded away Drew Gilbert. Acuna doesn't look like he's going to be as good as we thought he would be. Other guys like Marco Vargas, they're not panning out. They're actually getting worse and worse. Ryan Clifford may be that one chip from the 2023 fire sale. Crispy, I love your commentary. I've been waiting for 25 plus years. I need a championship now. I'm definitely with you with that. Stearns resents fans like me and makes it abundantly clear he doesn't care about fans like me. He runs this team like a 99-cent store. Well, a lot of 99-cent store, they're actually charging a lot more than 99 cents. But again, it's really tough to say when you got a $350 million payroll. Like, do you want a $400 million payroll, a $500 million payroll? Do you want to trade away some of our high paid players and try to, recycle that money? Because, Lindor, you could have traded last year, but got no value this year. Soto, that's an unmovable contract. And then some of the other players, like high paid players like Sean Manaea, can't trade him away. Like all of our high paid players, Nimmo, they got no value on the open market. We would have to eat this money and it would have to stay on the books. It would be like a Robbie Cano type of contract. So it's just really kind of hard to maneuver right now. And the last couple of years haven't made it any better. I mean, the Manaea contract, that's David Stearns. Soto contract, even though you have, supposedly Steve Cohen going out to do that, David Stearns is the guy in charge. He's the president. He has to give his blessing as well. So he's responsible for that money on the books. He's responsible. He's not responsible for the Lindor money. He's not responsible for the Nimmo money, but he is responsible for a lot of new money on the books. So, if you're not happy with Mania, which I know you're not, if you're not happy with Soto, you have gripes with that. But who else? Who else would you have gone out and got this offseason? One of the guys, I'll tell you, one of the guys that I wanted and that I think would have made an impact is I wanted Bellinger. That was one of my solution guys. I wanted Bellinger really bad, but we decided to go in another direction. And obviously center field has been a problem all year. All right, so let's go over some moments in this game. Obviously, the Mets lose 7-6. Let's see if we could try to find anything good. We went over the pitching already. Mania didn't do great. 4 innings, 6 hits, 4 runs allowed. His fastball was sitting 91 miles per hour. He threw 87 pitches in 4 innings, 87 pitches. He really labored, had 5 strikeouts, 2 walks. He allowed 1 home run, but did not look good. Reed Garrett came in the 5th inning. He allowed 1 run. And then you had Raley come in, looked pretty decent. Very good, in fact. He was the best looking pitcher of the day. Rogers came in. He allowed 2 hits, no runs. Helsley allowed 1 run, and Diaz 1 run. But let's look at how the game started. So in the first inning, looking pretty good. The Mets, Francisco Lindor up. He gets hit by a pitch. Luckily, then Francisco Lindor steals a base. He is on second. You have Juan Soto up. Juan Soto singles on a ground ball to the center fielder, and you have Francisco Lindor scoring. So in that point right there, you have Lindor stealing a base, and you have Juan Soto hitting with runners in scoring position, gets the job done. Great job starting off the game on a positive note. Then you have Juan Soto on first base. He steals a bag. So early on, the Mets are looking spry. The Mets are looking to start things off. You have 2 stolen bases. You have a hit with runners in scoring position. And as a Mets fan, you're feeling good. So you have Brandon Nimmo, your number 3 guy up, and you're just hoping, just make contact. Or in Brandon Nimmo's case, walk if you're not making contact. So he walks, and, all right, great. We are on business. We got multiple men on base. We already scored a run. We got Pete Alonso up. Yeah, right, good stuff. But Pete kind of kills momentum, grounds into a double play. And, that really kind of shifted the momentum at that point. We had no out, but 2 outs were made on the ground ball double play from Pete Alonso. So the inning was not over. You have Jeff McNeil singling, Ronnie Mauricio singling, and then Cedric Mullins. He had an opportunity to drive a run in with a runner in scoring position, and he grounded out to the second baseman. But the Mets, they had multiple hits in the first inning. They scored 2 runs, and if not for the ground ball double play or Pete Alonso hitting into the ground ball double play, the Mets should have scored more runs. But again, all right, nonetheless, you can't complain. They scored 2 runs. Great job. All right, so in the second inning, the Mets looking for more runs. Brett Beatty coming to the plate. Nice job hitting the ball to center field. Home run. Mets up 3-0. Go to the third inning. Mets, again, looking to put more runs on the board. Pete Alonso, nobody's on base. He doubles this time, so he's on second base. Jeff McNeil, next batter up, he pops up. Then you have Ronnie Mauricio singling, and that drives in Pete Alonso, and the Mets up 4-0. So by the end of the third inning, the Mets are up 4-0. And again, you're feeling very good as a Met fan. You're feeling very good. At this point, I wasn't home yet. I was looking at my phone, and the Mets continued to put up more runs. You go to the 4th inning. Again, Mets continue to put up more runs. And this was the complaint. The Mets offense usually, even if they scored, they would become stagnant. But Cedric Mullins comes up, hits his first home run as a Met, 16th home run of the game, of the year for Cedric Mullins, and the Mets go out to a 5-0 lead. 5-0 lead. But then the bottom of the 4th inning would come. The Brewers would score 3, and that would tighten the game to 5-3. Mets would score 1 run in the 5th, making it 6-3. But again, Brewers would come right back with 2 more in the 5th, making it 6-5. Mets would not score any more runs in the game. Brewers added 1 in the 8th, 1 more in the 9th to go ahead 7-6. But, again, the Mets jumped out offensively this game. This wasn't on the offense this game. It was not on the offense. In fact, everybody in this lineup had a hit except for Lindor and Nimmo. And Nimmo had 2 walks. So Nimmo got on base multiple times. So every offensive player was successful. The Mets scored in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 consecutive innings. Yes, it would have been nice if they would have scored more in the late innings to get more insurance runs. But, again, I think the offense did enough to win. The offense scoring 6 runs did enough to win. And the pitching is, this was the position of the pitchers to let the team down tonight. And, that was a sad part. They pulled the starter They pulled the starter in the 5th inning. Manaea gave up a single in the top of the 5th inning, and then they put in Reed Garrett. What's up, Robbie? No, I agree. Somebody's got to take responsibility. I mean, in fact, somebody's got to take responsibility in the fact as I think you got to fire somebody. You got to fire somebody because, again, you got way too much invested in this team. And this is not just an ebbs and flow of a season. People were saying, hey, this is normal. This is not normal. It is not normal to lose 11 out of 12. It is not normal for a team expected to win the World Series to go from a 6-game or 5.5-game lead in the National League East to now almost a 5-game deficit. I mean, the Mets are almost out of the last wild card spot. So, again, this is not normal for a team that, again, aspired to be a World Series contender. And again, everybody's saying right now, every day right now becomes a new low point for the Mets. I mean, we trail Philly by 5.5 games right now. It's not getting any easier. Just looking at the updated standings on the wild card, the lead on Cincinnati for the last wild card spot is 1.5 games. 1.5 games. And Mendoza's comments. Mendoza specifically says, we haven't played well for quite a bit. And this is what happens. We can't be looking at the standings. We have to get the job done. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that. We can't be looking at the standings. I mean, I assume they haven't been looking at the standings recently, and the Mets lost so much ground. I mean, you have to be cognizant on what's going on around you. That shouldn't affect. I mean, you looking at the standings should have no effect on the way you play. In fact, if you look at the standings and you see your losers of 11 out of your last 12, that should motivate you to play much, much better. A couple comments from Brandon Nimmo. So Brandon Nimmo isn't about to concede the division to the Phillies. He goes, we can still go on a run. We still have time. I don't think the division is slipping away. We're still within shot, and we still have been known, this team specifically, to go on runs. So we can easily rattle off a winning streak, especially with the people that we got here. See, that's one thing. That's one thing. You have Carlos Mendoza, you have Brandon Nimmo, you have, Pete Alonso at times. They always have these, positive things in to say, right? I mean, it's nice, Brandon Nimmo. It sounds nice. Yeah, we have enough talent. We could go on a winning streak. Hey, you know what? You got to go out and show us that you have the potential to do that. Because you guys are becoming a laughing stock. And this is steamrolling. This is steamrolling. Other teams in this league, other teams in the Major League Baseball, they see that the Mets are mightily struggling. You think the Braves are going to come in and they're going to feel a certain way about the Mets team. They're going to feel like this team is extremely beatable. If the Mets jump out to any lead, the Braves are going to say, hey, that's a team. They're going to falter. They're going to blow it. We're in this game. And every team who faces the Mets has to feel like they are in this game. Even you face a Helsley, you face a Diaz. Doesn't matter. And I personally felt that Helsley and Diaz, dynamic stuff, but the guy, it seems like he throws it over the heart of the plate very, very frequently. And his slider, sometimes his slider is dynamically moving. Other times it's moving slightly. So, Helsley, obviously I haven't watched him that much, but, the location doesn't seem like it's, obviously you can't lay pitchers right over the plate to major league hitters. Edwin Diaz saw the consequences of that today as well. But, even your top echelon relievers are, you're not really putting guys in a position to be successful. If you got to lean on a Tyler Rogers 3 straight games, the 4th, 5th game in a row, a guy is bound to struggle. You're not, these relievers aren't meant to pitch every day. It's natural for a guy's arm to get tired. It's natural. That's specifically natural. Nimmo has a point, but who is going to step up? How about Brandon Nimmo? How about a guy who's making $20 million? A guy who's been batting in the top half of the lineup for, most of the year. That's a guy who should step up. There's a lot of guys who should step up. Alvarez should step up. Vientos should step up. Mullins, he just got here. I think we have to give him a little more time. But there's a lot of guys. The whole lineup should be stepping up. We have expectations. Mauricio, I liked, today. I think he had a pretty good game. But again, it's the development of these kids. They're not being developed quick enough. Mauricio's still batting 234. Beatty, he's batting 228. Torrens is batting 216. McNeil's batting 254. Alonso's batting 264. Nimmo's batting 249. Soto's batting 251. And Lindor's batting 243. And that average is continuing to tumble. I think the Mets, one of the things, I said the Mets have to do a lot of things, bring up prospects, play with the lineup, and putting Nimmo in the 3rd spot and changing the lineup like they did. All right, maybe it sparked the lineup a little today, putting people in different positions. But also I think figuring out what makes this team go. I think we saw last year that a guy like Francisco Lindor is a major catalyst, right? When he's going in a positive direction, the team goes in a positive direction. Now, Lindor has gone well in a negative direction defensively, offensively. He's not playing well. We all know that. I think the Mets have to look at that. What is going on with Francisco Lindor? What is going on with Francisco Lindor? A guy last year who was number 2 in the MVP race. And not only did he have a good year last year, he started off the first 2 months as one of the best players in baseball. Then he breaks his toe. What the hell is going on? Is there still issues with the toe? Has he compensated? Has he compensated in the last 2 months? And has that thrown off his mechanics? Anybody who knows if they have an injury on the lower part of the body, sprained ankle, bad knee, you tend to compensate. And if he's been compensating and that's thrown off his mechanics, or if he's not fully healed, there's an issue there. There's an issue there when he's making these mistakes in the field. It tells me he's not confident, he's not comfortable, and at the end of the day, he's not right. Why is Francisco Lindor not right? Right? He's not a rookie. He's not a guy with little experience. There seems to be something going on with him. And that is what I would figure out. If I'm Carlos Mendoza and I want to save my job, look at one of my superstars and look at how his play has drastically changed and try to figure out why. Hey, what's up, Jason? So bad. Preaching to the choir here, man. I mean, it is extremely bad, extremely bad. And the fact of the thing is, there's really no answers. There's really no answers. I said yesterday on yesterday's show how there's really no excuses. Mets are fully healthy. It's not like a couple months ago. You just wait till McNeil comes back, Alvarez comes back, Vientos is healthy. You wait till Manaea is back in the rotation. Montaz is going to give us an extra arm. Senga when he was injured. There were all these excuses. Oh, the bullpen, this. You don't have an eighth inning guy. There were so many excuses, so much cover that we could have gave the Mets, Carlos Mendoza, for not winning, for not putting up a sustained effort. But now, this is the team. This is the team David Stearns said, I want to put out there, and I want, obviously when they're fully healthy, he has confidence that this team could win a World Series. And again, that's to Crispy's point that there's no excuse. David Stern, this is your team. And when your team is fully healthy, they've played the worst. Oh, I keep almost dropping that. And I just made my quick notes when Mendoza was speaking after on the press conference, and this is just these are Mendoza's comments. He goes, "It's very tough. It's very frustrating. We just got to keep going." And this is the comment that really annoyed me. He says that we continue to be outplayed, but then he goes on to say, "Is we got the talent, we have the players, we continue to believe in our guys. Great job. We have to keep going. Nobody said this was going to be easy." It's like he gets these quotes in like a motivational speaker book. Last couple of months, we haven't played well. We can't look at the standings. We have to get the job done. And then they asked him about like if he ever thought about going to Edwin Diaz in the eighth inning, because Diaz only pitched a few times in the last couple of weeks. And he basically said that, a couple of reasons he didn't go to him. Obviously, you got a guy like Helsley, who's been a great dynamic closer the last couple of years. But he also said that Diaz hasn't been good in holding runners on. He's been letting guys steal off him. So that's one of the reasons why Helsley's been successful, and that Diaz hasn't been good with runners on base. Obviously you got to improve on those. And then he said Manaea had a rough outing. Then he starts talking about, Manaea, he's been relying on two pitches, the fastball and the sweeper. And But here's the thing. Manaea is relying on two pitches, the fastball and the sweeper. And this is one of, the main things actually I wanted to cover today. You know what? Let me bring this up for you guys. Now, I think it's a big problem. Last year, Manaea was really focusing on three pitches, the fastball, the sweeper, and the changeup. And the fastball really kind of looked nasty because of the new arm angle and because of the advanced velocity. Like his velocity was a bit more last year. Now, all right, here we go. Okay, so his fastball velocity this year is 91.4. It's in the 12th percentile. Last year was 92.3, and in 2023 it was almost 94. So almost 3 miles per hour dipping from a couple years ago. Now he was never really a fire baller, but he had some decent zip for a lefty. This year he has really been, again, this is where I said he's been relying on two pitches. He's been throwing his four-seamer 65% of the time and his sweeper 29% of the time. But what I notice is when he's getting late in the game, and ridiculously late in the game for Sean Manaea is the fourth or fifth inning, he starts losing control on the four-seamer, and he starts exclusively going to the sweeper. That's what I noticed. And guys, they could time it. If they know it's coming, if they know that the four-seamer is a bit, it seems like it drifts when he gets tired, it goes higher in the strike zone. And when he does go to it, the four-seamer is very hittable. But, he becomes very predictable late in games. And when you become a two-pitch pitcher and guys have already seen you 3 times or 2 times in the lineup, you're the third at bat against the same guy, you're very hittable to these professional hitters. So that's a big problem. That is a big problem. Now, last year, if you look at this, and this is one of the issues. Now, folks, look at this. Now, bear with me. You got four-seamer and the sweeper and the changeup, but he's really just throwing the four-seamer and the sweeper. But last year, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He had a 6-pitch mix, but he was throwing the four-seamer 31% of the time, and then he was throwing a sinker 24% of the time, and the sweeper 18%. So, I don't know if this is a mistake by Baseball Savant, but, why are we not going to the sinker? Like, what happened to the sinker? I'm just looking every couple of years, it just really seems like he changes his pitch mix around drastically. If you go back to 2021, he didn't even throw a four-seamer. And he didn't throw a four-seamer and he didn't throw a sweeper. Now the four-seamer and the sweeper, the two pitches that he didn't even throw in 2021, are the only pitches that he exclusively throws in 2025. So, I mean, a guy like that, in my opinion, who is drastically changing what he's done over his career, is a guy that, I would think that there's some issues with. I would think that there's really kind of some issues with, giving him $75 million when he's 33 years old, and he's only exhibited only had 2 big months in his career. Again, this might be a huge mistake. All right, folks. We're about at the hour mark, so I'm gonna call it a night for tonight. But again, this is kind of like a train wreck. Unfortunately, we have a day off tomorrow, and then we have a game on Tuesday against the Braves. So that's an opportunity right there to change the narrative. Hopefully the Mets can do that. Hopefully we can get some energy. But tomorrow, mark my word, I think that we're going to see something happen, whether it's bringing kids up from the minors, whether it's firing a hitting coach. It just feels like tomorrow is the perfect day to make a change. Let's see what happens. If anything, we'll do a live stream tomorrow night. And then I'll see everybody either tomorrow night if something big happens or on Tuesday night. But I want to wish everybody a good night. On the way out, if you can hit the like button. If you're new, not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Thank you all so much. Have a great night. And again, let's go Mets. I'm going to go back to my old saying. It can't get any worse, but probably will. I will speak to everybody very, very soon.